Sound is a product of the brain. You don't have sound in the world, you have energy in the world that the brain converts, and eventually you get the product of sound. Voice to God technology is longer range, so we are in an aspect of trying to create the idea, the technology is create sound inside somebody's head.
All right, we are joined today by Griffen Herchko. And Griffin, I found you, and I feel like I'm really late to the game on some of the stuff. Now, I've studied mkultra, Jolly West, a lot of things that happened with the. Geez, it just slipped my mind. But I keep wanting to say Cook. It's not Cook, but the trials in the '70s in front of Congress, with everything that was going on. We've studied a lot of JFK, and somehow I had heard the term Havana syndrome. And I don't know why, but maybe the word syndrome just made me think, oh, is this like Gulf War syndrome and some sort of sickness or whatever? And I just never really paid attention to it. But then somebody posted on my Twitter a video of somebody using a device, it was a dish, and it was projecting quite literally the Eagles song into people's heads, which they could not escape. You couldn't hear
Yeah.
it, you just saw this sweeping. And I said, whoa, this is scary. And my first thought was, imagine what could be done with subliminals. And then my second thought was, you could make somebody paranoid. And then somebody tweeted a conglomeration picture or composite image of a lot of mass shooters who all said, we heard voices. And that has sent me down a rabbit hole. And I don't know, somehow you had got attached to the thread or somebody else got attached to the thread. And you have this amazing story that you put out on Instagram. And apparently you have been a victim of this technology. And I was hoping you
Yeah.
could tell me
Yeah.
your story.
All right, just to clarify, the way that we look at it in the media with Havana syndrome, the doctors are looking at it at a different way. They're looking at it from the anomalous health incident. So the media coined Havana syndrome because of the Cuba incident, but the doctors are looking at it from anomalous anomalous health incidents, and the DHA is looking at it from unexplained sensory events. So we have a bunch of people out in the world for different reasons that are coming into this new problem. This problem, though, is pretty easily explainable if anybody picks up some simple textbooks about antenna theory, looks into some medical research. It's all there, but nobody wants to come out and kind of name the pink elephant in the room.
I've heard the term voice of God technology. Is this related to that?
Yes, well, like hypersonic sound, you could say is the baby version of voice to God technology, but voice to God technology is longer range, passes through walls, and works with the neurophysiology of the body. So we are in an aspect of trying to create the idea, the technology is create sound inside somebody's head. Sound is a product of the brain. You don't have sound in the world, you have energy in the world that the brain converts, and eventually you get the product of sound. So a bird emits a sound pressure wave that comes into contact with our cochlear. Our cochlear transmits that into a electrical signal. That signal goes to our auditory cortex, and that's the moment sound appears.
So it's the same as vision because we don't actually see, we kind of record and interpret signals that are coming into our brain through light, right?
That's correct. So light is the electromagnetic spectrum between like 520 nanometers to 720. There's your color spectrum. But by the time it hits the eye, it's condensed down to the ganglion or the retina. It's then converted into an electrical signal. It's not light anymore. So that electrical signal is what's going to the brain to being processed. And the brain is a phenomenal neural network that's capable of making these processes. But if you get the signal in, you can stimulate vision. So they already figured this out in the early days with electromagnetic radiation. If you get it at the right interval, at the right pulse, you can literally stimulate the nerve cells to produce uh, phosphines, which is the production of light without light, and the ability to hear sound coming out of seemingly nowhere.
Now, is this
So
related to like going back to audio, since that's where we're on? Is a cochlear implant somehow tied into this type of technology?
I would probably say that due to how a cochlear works and a cochlear implant works, even Neuralink, how we're getting these monkeys that have, the severed spine to walk again, paraplegics are able to move limbs that they've never been able to move. All of this is related to the same science. So we're working with neurophysiology, how the brain processes signals and sends signals, and we're working with our version of how we can make those manipulations to send information to the brain and how the brain can get that information back out.
Okay, so and I want to cover that because not all of this is negative. There's obviously some very great things that can come out of this type of technology to help mankind.
Unbelievably. Like, other than the abuse that I've experienced from it, this thing is the cat's meow when it comes to solving world problems. We can end human trafficking with this technology. We can literally streamline communications with this technology. Kids, literally, 'cause from my aspect of it, it's safe if it's not abused. Kids would be able to literally immediately call for help in a way that's unprecedented. It's therapeutic already. It's entering into the world of science where it's, therapy for pain relief. For every single harm that you can create using this, you can also have a beneficial side.
So now, unfortunately, though, and I wanted to put that early because we're going to get into your story, and it looked fascinating. And apparently, you're going through a trial right now. So, share as much as you can comfortably, while watching your legal P's and Q's. Obviously, I don't expect you to divert too far beyond whatever your legal counsel guides of you.
Yeah, it's already out there. All right, so this all starts back in 2018, third quarter. So I literally met a flight attendant with American Airlines, and we met at a casino. We literally stayed together for 2 weeks, living it up in the casinos. She was a diamond member. And one thing led to another, and she decided to take me back to her apartment. And her apartment looked like a Costco, like no joke. Her roommate, Laren Akana, another flight attendant, and her had gone on some massive burglary spree that had lasted quite a while. And they had recently just gotten out on bail because they were caught by the police. But the property that they were caught with at the time that they were apprehended was minimal. It was like 1% of the nest egg that they had acquired. So this is how I kind of fell into that. Now, that really didn't have much to do with anything, but her brother is an engineer inside of the aerospace community. So this guy was working at Rocketdyne, and then he was working, I think he works at Blue Origin. So patriarch of the family, educated. The mother had 4 children, or 4 boys and a girl. They all went to college. She worked hard. They did what they had to do. But Candace was stealing, not for money. She was going through a serious emotional dilemma that had occurred with her family. And you can look her up online. I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but she went through probably one of the worst experiences that a human being can go through for a period of 4 years between 8 to 12. And the police got involved a decade later, and the guy that started it all, he's in prison, I believe, for 94 years now. So, and San Diego ended up giving her an award for her valor and coming forward and the whole thing. But
So, is
um,
this after she did the burglaries, or during? I'm confused about the timing on that.
this is all before the burglaries.
Okay.
But the stress that that happened with her family, the stress of what occurred and who said what and what actually transpired, it put a lot of tension on the family, and Candace was not happy with her family
Mhm.
at all. So what ended up happening, and all this stress compounded to a point where she tried to, and this ended up causing me to call the police. The police arrived. Luckily, They found her in time. She went to a hospital. I was left alone in the apartment.
This
And
is
then
all in
3 days,
2 weeks?
this all happened roughly 1 month after I arrived at her apartment.
Okay, okay. It was just such a tight timeline. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, we spill right into this. 2 weeks at the casinos, 1 month at the apartment, suicide attempt. She's in the hospital. I'm now stuck at the house. I'm waiting for Laren to return from flight duty because he was our roommate. And I'm just sitting around all this property trying to figure out how I'm going to work this relationship out. I honestly didn't know it was even going to last because she was looking at 4 felony counts, and I'm just working it out as a human being. Her brother and his family and Laren all show up on the third night while Candace is gone to the apartment. Laren comes in and immediately wants me to just vacate the premises, not giving me any information. I say, I'm waiting for Candace to get back. Laren leaves, lets Nathan in. Nathan comes in and assaults me in my bedroom, tries to forcefully remove me from the house. The police get called. Everything gets worked out. I don't press charges because I'm not trying to add to what's going on with Candace. I'm just now meeting her family, and they leave with the trailer because they wanted to move all of the property inside the house. 4 hours later, Laren comes back with Nathan. They come inside the house and they plant this little clear plastic object with white powder in it. They stash it in the kitchen, and as soon as they leave the house, bam, I can literally hear someone talking to me.
Can you describe that object exactly again? Because it sounded
A
odd.
neuro-electromagnetic device. So this is what the US Army literally coined as the device used for the propagation of electromagnetic radiation to affect neurons in the body. So this was posted on their website under the listing of B2K. The United States Army actually defined what it was. And it sat up there for quite some time, but it wasn't until Sharon Weinberger from Wired Magazine ended up writing about the article.
Okay,
All
I
of,
think I've seen it.
right, right, and this was in the middle of the Gulf War. So we were already using this equipment in the Gulf War, but then Sharon comes along and does an entire expose on the weapon system. And this, if you check the dates, this almost prompted an immediate response by the United States or the US Army to pull all that information off the website, which immediately prompted Sharon to be like, well, that was weird because it was there today and now it's gone. So, but inside of that terminology is the actual device name or the neuro electromagnetic device, which if you look at the compound words of it, neuro, neuron, and electromagnetic, you have the fundamentals of a communication system that can produce sound while bypassing one of the fundamental laws of what scientists say is needed for sound. Something to create energy, a medium for it to pass through, and something to perceive it. So we can now create it and perceive it, but we don't need a medium for it to travel through.
What what were the voices like in your head? I mean, can you describe it exactly? Like, what did they say? Was it echoing? Was it just normal? How did it
It's not
sound?
echo. It's not echo. First, you get it's almost like I got a high pitched whine. It's like an immediate tinnitus that's like maybe at 60 decibels. If you want to compare it to something, it's loud. And then after that whine kind of subsides, you can literally hear speech. Speech is probably at around 54 decibels if you want to compare it to sound pressure level. So it's loud, but it's not abusive. It's just, but if you want to do something, plug your ears right now and whisper quietly something. And where you hear that sound, you're gonna actually, your brain's gonna localize it to almost dead center down here. But this was dead center about here. That's where the brain localized it.
So is it
In-
similar to I had headphones called Aftershocks bone conduction headphones. Is it similar in placement like a bone conduction headphone thing?
Bone conduction still gives you what I would consider stereo. like you can still define a sound field outside of your body with bone conduction, but this, I mean, it really does sound internal and kind of raised up.
What were
It's
they
weird.
saying? What were the voices saying?
Oh, you need to leave the house, buddy. You need to get out of the house. Get out of the house.
So
You
it's
need
just
to
like a
leave.
loop.
No, it really did sound like somebody was over there talking and waiting for me to reply.
Whoa.
And if I didn't say anything, it was like, "What are you doing, man? Are you going to leave the house? Are you going to get out of the house? Go, leave, get out of the house." I think they
Now,
were trying to scare me.
well, did it work? I would work on me.
I've been in the sound field. I've been in the sound high-end audio field for over 20 years. I worked in high-end sales. I designed.
Oh,
I've been around hypersonic sound lasers. I've already seen all of this. So when I was experiencing this, it already seemed in the general field of what I had already experienced. It was just a little different. I had never heard through this type of sound production, but I already knew I was hearing. I already knew there was a problem. I already knew they wanted me out of the house, and now I was dealing with this. So I looked at this as kind of like, okay, guys, got some smart people with some pretty savvy equipment. I'm gonna see where this goes. But
yeah.
the real thing, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, where would you get this equipment, though? I mean, obviously, I could see the military having access, things like that. But I mean, can I just go to my favorite electronics store and buy that? How do you get it?
From after I've been looking at this, there are very few. This is a limited availability. This isn't something that's coming out of somebody's garage in Dayton, Ohio. This isn't something that Nathan Torian cooked up with his friends in the basement of their house. Because it's not just the sound propagation, it's the ability for two-way communication to occur. I mean, at some point, I finally got curious and just said out loud, why? Like, why? What is your reasoning behind me wanting to leave the house? And the answer was I'd be in trouble for drug possession. And once that occurred, my mind was blown. It's like I knew about audio. It's easy. You can send a signal, you can produce audio. Great. Military's been working on that since the 70s. But to hear the reply, that's what really spun my mind through a loop. But at the same time, I had to deal with the problems. Like, well, I don't have drugs on me, so how is this? And then I realized that they were in the house, and that's when things escalated to me searching the house for, what they might have put in it. I found the object. I got angry with them, like, what the hell are you guys doing putting this in my house? And they're like, dude, you just need to get out of there. Just leave. We only want the property. You don't need to be with Candace. That the whole rigamadoo of trying to convince me. And when I said, absolutely not, I'm waiting, that's when the pain started. Immediate onset, ear pain, eye pain, and it
Wow.
hurts.
Is it vibrations that are causing that, or how's that?
Sharp, sharp pain. Like right behind the eye, like someone taking a knife and just driving it in. And it's quick. And the ear pain is very sharp and acute. It is just, it's almost nerve-wracking. The vibrations that people talk about, I've experienced that. That's just a different version of how you're working with the neurophysiology. You got to understand that you're pulling in information from your skin. You can sense things. But if you kind of disrupt that signal just a little bit, you'll get the same sensation as a vibration. You just have to disrupt the signal. So a vibration is energy, but you can do the same thing on a neurological scale if you just pat it from the other side. Same way you can produce sound.
Can you block it? Can you prevent this? I mean,
I have not found any viable form of shielding. I have tried water depths of up to 100 or water depths of up to 15 feet. I have tried underground depths of up to 120 feet, and I have tried really like no cell phones or radios work, and I have tried commercial airliners across the nation.
not even no
Like
Faraday cage or any type of
I can,
thing.
on, I'm just a regular guy. I have not been able to access a location where a Faraday cage was presented to me that I could step or walk into. So Faraday cages only work at certain frequencies. You can
Mhm.
build a Faraday cage, but a Faraday cage is not an end-all be-all solution. So in order to test this, I actually called a company that's, I believe that they're up in New York. I can't remember the name of them, but they design Faraday cages for the military, private government, and for private citizens. If you want to put your car in a Faraday cage in the garage, they're the company that builds it. So I wanted to go up there and see, like, hey, can we test this out? Can I, walk into this structure and can this thing, you know, do anything? But I have not gotten word back from the company to allow that process to occur.
Now, when you say to test this out, uh, uh, do you have this device that you're sending into yourself? Are they following you around? I mean, how are you going to test it?
You ready for this?
Hmm.
This thing, when I stop speaking, I can hear that, what I just said, at about 54 decibels.
So you're echoing
Thi-
against yourself?
It's not even an echo. It literally is within a 200 millisecond return of what I'm trying to say, and it comes back. And it makes the same exact mistakes that BCI makes. And I don't even have to use my throat. This is where it gets to the point of where you're looking at how the prank is situated. The idea behind this concept is phenomenal. We're going to literally annoy the crap out of somebody. And you can see this in the 2013 prank or attacks on Palm Springs, which ended up getting media attention. The whole town, 300, 400 people ended up getting hit. These residents started literally trying to figure this out and started talking to each other. This promoted activity to the point where it got a news station involved, and you hear these people like literally talking about their experience. And one of the major key aspects of this is one gentleman says he can literally hear the words he's reading. So when you think about that, what is reading and how could you hear the words that you're reading through a system? And the truth is, as long as the system stays under 200 milliseconds or 200 millionths of a second and can return the audio of whatever is causing word propagation to occur, you can literally create a closed loop communication system. And I think that the beauty of this is the prank is applying this to people and watching them suffer through the madness of trying to explain the technology to people who haven't wrapped their head around it yet.
But I'm wondering, how's it persisting? Is it like it's caused damage to you, and that's why you keep getting it, or is there literally a device following you around or implanted in some way? I'm very confused about that. How is this
No
persisting?
implants. It's not an implant thing. No one's cut me open. No one's put anything inside me. The way that this prank worked at the beginning is the same way that the prank works now. It's either done two ways. Either you can produce a signal and receive a signal like a cell phone, right? You can go anywhere you want. Your cell stays connected to the network. It's that easy. You don't have a cell tower following you. Doesn't work that way. Or you would literally need a targeting system to actually target the brain. That's it. It's only done one or two ways. You're either beaming it right in and reading and taking it right out, or it's just through a natural flow of physics and electrodynamics, how energy can relate back and forth. And to be honest, I think it's kind of like a mixture of both, judging from the aspects of it. An antenna in Starbucks producing a signal goes 900 feet at best. You get the Starbucks, not even 900 feet, maybe 45 feet, 60 feet. Sorry. So you got Wi-Fi as long as you're near that antenna. But if you have a Wi-Fi rifle or a beam antenna, you could be 2 miles away and you can pick up the signal from the antenna that can only go 45 feet. That is what a lot of people haven't wrapped their head around. How could something that can only travel 45 feet transmit 2 miles back to the source? And that's because the antenna that's supplying the larger beam bridges the connection for the other antenna. And signal propagation can move back and forth. That's it. So if electromagnetic radiation, or what they call action potentials in our body, are being produced, all you really have to do is put an antenna out and bridge the gap, and you immediately get that information rolling out.
But what I mean is that somebody ultimately, like what you're describing, I still envision a person working a device or somebody proactively pushing out this signal, doing whatever. But it seems to be persisting with you. Does that, and that's what I'm saying, does this mean there's a person continuously persisting at following you around or somehow sending the signal? That's what's confusing me.
Something is sending the signal, but
Mhm.
the way that the system is automated at this point, I don't believe that this system is anywhere close to requiring a 24-hour guy like a boom mic following me around. I don't believe it's anywhere close to that. I think we're along the ways of a fully automated communication system. Um, I I got to speculate. The easiest trip from me to anywhere is from the sky down. So when you think about it like that, or people have been talking about cell towers, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around that fully. But either way, the signal is being generated and it is capable of working with me. I mean, I can go to work right now and talk about this. All my friends at work understand it. I talk to my family about this. My family understands it. But the biggest thing that we understand is that however this process is occurring, it's not something that's going to be readily solvable by walking into a police station or a hospital, as we've seen with the Havana syndrome victims. So you have these U.S. diplomats that fought for 3 years to convince their government that they were injured by this type of system. And it took 3 years to pass that act. And now we know that they were attacked, but now nobody's coming up with the how it's done. And I think that that's where the problem lies. It's because there's a lot of money wrapped up in this technology, and in this time period between trying to admit what's happening and how it's being used, there's a couple of pranksters out there in the community. And this is the problem. How did Nathan Torian get access to solve a criminal problem in his family, moving that stolen property? He made a phone call, and within 4 hours, this thing was on top of him. And it only lasted that night for 45 minutes. Like Candace ended up coming home, and we ended up staying together for 3 years. So, and this problem didn't persist past that point. It wasn't until a year later that they used this thing again.
Okay, and now you're in court somehow about this.
Correct. They ended
What's
up,
happening?
yeah, they ended up playing with me a little bit too hard with this system, and they ended up using. You've heard about stage theater, so they would send people like they literally sent 9 people to my house one time, dressed in black with electronics equipment dangling over their bodies, like it was like a Halloween costume, and they were trying to get me to call the police. And they were just sitting there dancing and taunting around my house, and then they all ran off. This is the kind of theatrics that people kind of talk about. Then I pick up the phone, and if I was stupid, I'd be like, "Oh my God, there's 9 people here in black suits with electron." Then the police are like, "What in the world?" You know. They attacked me a couple of times, put me in the hospital. Candace was flying me from, Dallas all the way to Ohio to visit medical centers to kind of avoid the problem. And we all knew why the problem was occurring, except for Candace. It's because I was unfaithful to Candace, and they literally caught me. So they gave me the ultimatum to tell Candace or we'll tell her. But I wouldn't tell Candace, and they wouldn't tell Candace either because they really couldn't explain how they found out. So this cat and mouse game kind of ended up going back and forth, and it involved some of the trips that I took in the airline because after I landed, when I was inside of secure facilities, someone was coming in posing as my sister to try and access my property. So this led me to the final belief that whether this system is operated in a satellite or a cell tower, or if it's just a dude in a van that has the time to actually follow somebody around, which is not really plausible in my mindscape, that somebody else at least had the notion to try and be there physically and mess with me. So I went after the flight manifest. At that point, I was just like, I want to find out who was on the aircraft with me. And when I started looking into that, that's when the death threat started. So they actually sent a man into my building, broad daylight, threatened my life, told me not to, go after any flight manifest information. The police ended up went and go look for the guy. It created a problem, but the police didn't want to look any farther than the guy, and no one wanted to understand why he was there in the first place. This led me to get a job with the airline because it was going to be easier for me to get the information from the inside than it was for me to get the information anywhere else by suing them. I had to go up against 90,000 applicants to get the job, but I actually succeeded in getting a paid ticket. American Airlines wanted me for a final interview. And when I went to go make that interview, they started threatening me not to board the aircraft. And when I attempted to board the aircraft anyway, they pulled some BS to stop me from getting on the plane. This ended up backfiring because what they tried to use was my criminal background, and they tried to suppress the story by throwing me in prison, but the state dismissed all the charges, which allowed me to go back and look at who made the phone calls, and it led right back to the Torian family. So now we were at a point where I was able to go kind of public with this and start talking about it. This led to a serious problem because I started opening my mouth, and Nathan didn't know how to silence the story. He should have sued me in court for libel, right? Take me in. If you think I'm lying, prove it. But he couldn't do that. So he started literally calling the police, faking false emergencies, trying to build a perspective that he could take into the courts and get a court order that grants him protection, but also silences my ability to speak. Literally a gag order without a trial. And I was okay with all of this even up to that point. Like, this guy was just kind of burying himself slowly because he lied to the judge, he lied to everybody. But in the process of all this, they gave him the gag order, which I was okay with because when you read the order, it specifically says what I'm not allowed to say, and it specifically states where I'm not allowed to say it. But I ended up getting the interview with American Airlines again. And so Nathan, seeing me publicly talking about my connection with him and how he introduced this technology to me, um, he started literally freaking out and calling the police again. And they arrested me for violating the protection order by speaking his name. But the place where I spoke it, this is what the trial is all about. What I said and where I said it, I don't think this thing's ever going to hit trial. And what's going to end up happening is we're going to uncover all the lies that he told to the judge previously to get the order in the first place. So what we have is two grown men with one of them having access to some pretty sophisticated technology. And we have a prank that's lasted for quite some time. And it's now boiled into a court setting. And he actually might go to prison if they actually prosecute him to the letter of the law for lying, which is a felony offense in any court proceeding. So, and if he ends up going to jail, then this story is going to end up kind of reverberating out into the public even further. Obviously, you found me. So, but beyond all of this, it's an amazing communication system. It's hard for people to grasp how you can read a signal and return a signal to at least form communication, but it's all there. SSI technology or silent speech interfaces, the BCI technology, all of these aspects, remote sensing. How far can you sense an object? I mean, let's be honest. We can sense stars 87.5 billion light years away, right? That's we are getting some form of electromagnetic radiation from that far away, and we're able to amplify the signal, and we're able to study some of this stuff. So if you're really talking about a human brain, I don't think it's as complicated as people are making it. We already figured out how to get words out. You already see all this machine learning that's coming out where, oh, it can interpret exactly what you're thinking to a certain extent. It's not mind reading. We're just looking at the body in a new way, neurophysiologically, or neurologically, and we're using machines to kind of work with that, and we're getting all these wonderful technologies coming out of it.
Wow. So what's next for you?
Well, as soon as I win this court case, once that's done, then I literally have to recoup some damages. So with the amount of with the death threats and the stopping me from boarding aircraft and all the malicious activity that's literally caused me to not be able to advance in career, not be able to advance in my capabilities to earn more income because I've been having to deal with all of this. I have enough for civil damages to go against. That's one. Two, a company has actually picked me up to write the curriculum and design the curriculum to educate the public. So my experience with the system and my story, along with how it relates to other people, they pretty much said that you're the guy, and if you can build the videos and start to educate the public on what these systems can do, good and bad. And I'm not the doom gloom sayer. Like it's a prank, it's a problem I got to deal with, but they're not trying to put me in the hospital anymore. They're not at the point where they're trying to hurt me or cause excruciating amounts of pain for hours on end. We're past that point. They already got what they wanted, which was me to confess to Candace, and they already scared me out of Texas because I was living right next to her mom. So once that pretty much took place, a weird transition took place where it wasn't really talking to a person anymore. It was like talking to a machine. And that's the weird thing. So in the early days, I can argue with it and they would talk over me. Like I know myself, I can piss people off. And I would say some things that would piss them off and they would be yelling at me through the system and I would be yelling at them and there was literally crosstalk. But all that after I left Texas, it just goes straight to automation. And it's pretty fantastic, but it's just there to annoy you. It's just a 24 V2K. I just want to sit here and annoy you all day. That's it.
Wow.
But
That
it still makes the
sounds
same mistakes that BCIs make.
that sounds completely disturbing to me, and I admire your perseverance, but I don't think that I would handle that as well. To wrap things up, I always like to ask one last question, and that's essentially, what is the one question I should have asked you, but I neglected to?
The one question, what can we do publicly as a society to facilitate faster responses to problems that are cropping up? And this works for all things. We need to learn to ask the right questions. And that's the bottom line. Our media are the people who we entrust to investigate anything. Nobody is asking the right question. So when you have a victim that says that, something occurred, then you should be able to go in and ask these fundamental questions. And it should get down to fundamental science. Like, how is this possible? How can somebody read an electrical signal in a brain, right? And then how can we make that long range? And then how can we return the audio? Do these systems exist? All of these questions should be asked by our media. More and more questions should be asked by, what happened to the victims. But on the war side of things, no one can get answers. If a soldier saying I got shot, I want to go sue the guy that shot me. That's never going to happen, right? You already put yourself in that position, and it occurred. But people like Len Burr, who were attacked out of nowhere, who's a civilian, that's not a political agenda. People should be asking the right questions as to how that occurred, and we should be getting the faster answers instead of getting the runaround. Blaming crickets for an attack, I don't even know how people thought that one. I just don't.
Well, I'm going to keep asking questions of different people, maybe even Lynn Burr and others, because I would like to know more about what's going on here. I find all this very troubling. And Griffin, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Absolutely.